If you're a STEM student, then you should probably be writing your homeworks, your papers, your theses using LaTeX. LaTeX is a typesetting language where you type a little bit of code and it converts that into a beautiful document that is full of equations and figures. And it's just standard practice in a lot of disciplines like my own of mathematics to just do all of your academic writing in LaTeX. However, learning LaTeX has always been kind of a pain. I have a whole playlist with hours of content to try to get you from novice to expert at LaTeX, but it's just a lot of work. However, now large language models are really reducing that threshold of getting involved in LaTeX, so it's actually pretty easy to just get started right away, and the process of becoming really proficient is just a lot shorter. Okay, so I want to do two things in this video. First, if you're new or relatively new to using LaTeX, I want to show you how you can get started really easily. But if you're a bit more experienced, I also want to show how I have been integrating AI into my workflow when developing with LaTeX, and I'm just finding that it's making things a lot more efficient. Very briefly before we get into it, my entire playlist on LaTeX has been sponsored by Overleaf, which makes a fantastic LaTeX editor. However, since my last video, Overleaf has really been upgraded with AI integration pretty much throughout the entire editor. This is all possible by a partnership between Overleaf and Writefull, and so that's what I'm going to be using throughout this video, and you can check them out down in the link in the description. Let's begin with a quick overview for beginners. Feel free to jump to the next timestamp if you wish. Okay, so this is Overleaf. On the right-hand side, I have my finished document. This is just some of the things I'm going to talk about in this video. And on the left-hand side, I have a bunch of code. And basically what a LaTeX editor does is you type in the code, you compile it, and you get out your final finished product. Now, if you're just beginning, what I actually suggest doing is switching from the code editor to the visual editor. And what this does is try to hide as much of the code as possible and allow you to write just in a normal way. Like I can say, this is a sentence. I can come along and compile it. And now it's going to spit out, this is a sentence right here inside of my document. And for any of these things that I filled on, you can always come up here and click it. Like if I click on my name, it shows me the code that was originally there that had my name, and I can just go and change it. If I click on the title, it goes to the appropriate spot. So it just makes it really easy just to be writing as much as you like. We want to learn LaTeX in this video, so I'm going to primarily be here in the code editor. And I'll just note that the spot that says begin document, everything beneath that begin document is where you write stuff that's going to be displayed. And the things that are above the begin document are things like I want to include a special package, or I want to include settings that affect the total look and feel of my document. So we'll talk more about the preamble later. Now, the biggest reason to use LaTeX is beautiful math equations. And math equations are ones that I'd actually really encourage you to learn the syntax to be able to write them quickly and easily yourself. But if you're at the beginning, there's some shortcuts. I can come up here and generate an equation, and I have a choice. I can either do a text prompt, or if I've already written it down, I can upload an image that I've written down by hand, and Writefull's Tech GPT here is going to analyze that image and spit out the LaTeX code for that particular equation. So here it is, and I'm going to insert it into my document. I'm going to hit that compile button, and so here I have the definition of the definite integral that I'd written down on this piece of paper. I could equally as well had saying something like, in plain English, the integral from a to b of f of x dx, something like that, where I just describe what I'm doing word by word out loud. And the AI will also be able to get this, and I could insert that if I liked as well. Now, my recommendation for equations is that this is something I think you should become really fast and proficient at yourself. It's one of LaTeX strengths, and I think you should be able to do it and not just rely on the AI integration to be able to do it. So I'm just going to point out a couple things about the syntax that are worthwhile. All the special symbols like \int for integral, \lim for limit, \sum for sum, all of those common big math symbols have a little command like this. And then the way these equation environments work is that you use the underscore to put something beneath, like the underscore a means the a at the bottom of the integral, and then the caret means we're going to be going at the top. That's where I put my b. We can use braces to lump stuff together. So for example, for the limit, I wanted that whole n goes to infinity under there. So here it is beside the limit. It's underscored to indicate it goes down below. But in braces, I put the whole thing n to infinity, and that'll put that whole thing underneath the limit as we see over here. And again, there's more words that I'm learning here. \2 gives me a little arrow, and \empty gives me the infinity sign. You can also use the AI to help manipulate the look and the feel of the equations. For example, I have these three here. Those are currently written as three different equations, but you see how they're kind of like a little offset with where the equal sign is? So one thing I could do is I can select the code for those. I'm going to click this button that gives me AI assistance, and I'm going to say, align these equations. It will suggest a replacement, and if I do click replace, I'll note that it uses what's called the begin align environment here. I'm going to compile that, and now the three equations have the equal sign directly on top of each other. This is one of the strengths of LaTeX that allows you to format your mathematics really, really nicely here, and there's a lot of possibilities to be able to make this as beautiful as possible. You'll also notice that these two equations are enumerated 1 and 2, and these three are not. If I'm looking in the code, I notice that these two have the begin equation and end equation sort of wrapping the code. This one is wrapped by begin align and end align with the star. What does the star mean? Well, now it turns out the star is the thing that suppresses the enumeration, but I could say enumerate the equations here. And you'll see that we've got the same code as before, but without that asterisk. That's the difference. If I go and compile that, then hopefully I'm going to have a 3, 4, 5 appearing. 3, 4, 5, I do. A strength of LaTeX, by the way, is that all of this enumeration is done automatically as you add equations or remove equations. It keeps track of them as well. You're not having to manually write, this is the fourth equation every single time. Next topic is tables. This is one of the most annoying things in LaTeX that has just gotten so much easier. So the biggest delta that you can imagine. So how did I get this table to appear here? Here's a table from my YouTube analytics. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come along here and I'm going to take a screenshot of this particular table. I go to my sections on tables here. I click the table button. Again, I could describe the table, but I've got a whole table here. So what I'm going to do is add in that image, and then we'll actually try and generate out a table. And so what the AI is going to do here is it's going to read in that image and try to construct the actual LaTeX code for a table. Okay, it looks big and long and complicated. Let's come along here and compile it. And perfect. It has generated this entire table with all of that data that came from YouTube. I didn't have to format a single thing. Now I can also use this to make formatting fixes. So let me go and select my table. And what do I want to change about it? I'm going to get the AI involved. Let's make the first column be a yellow background. Just whatever you like. It has made a suggestion. Let's replace it. And I think this is going to make an error. Let's see if it does. Indeed, it hasn't gone in yellow. And now you see that there's this red line. The AI is not perfect, but what I really like about the implementation here is that it has errors. And if you suggest the fix on the error, let's see if it can do it here. It notes for us that AI can make mistakes. Yes, indeed it can. Here, the error is due to that we used a command called column color, which requires the color TBL package. It didn't suggest it to me to use it, and so I'm going to come up here and I'm going to add it in. So color TBL. By the way, this error assist is an Overleaf feature that's currently in beta. I've got early access to it, but it's scheduled to be released to all users by the end of 2024. And I hope that this is a good lesson about how working with LaTeX can look. Oh, there we go. We lovely have it now. We have our first column being yellow. The AI has gotten really, really good. It is not yet perfect. So it's worth sort of understanding the code enough to be able to make changes as they come about. By the way, I made an entire video about little formatting tweaks to tables. I'll link it down below. There's all sorts of stuff you can do to tables. And as it gets more complicated, I feel like learning those different distinctions yourself, as opposed to relying on the AI, can be something that's important. But honestly, tables are kind of annoying, so I usually like this copy and paste trick, or I sometimes even make tables in Excel and then import them into Overleaf in this way via the image. I think the tables are just one of those shortcuts that the AI has just made a lot better. Now, one of the strengths of LaTeX is not just beautiful equations, but beautiful plots and beautiful diagrams as well. And for this, there's a whole environment that's called Tixie. Again, I've done a whole video on how to do Tixie, but what is so impressive to me is how you can simplify and speed up the process of learning this complicated package called Tixie via using the AI. So let's just try a few different things. How about this? Create a Tixie plot. Tixie is the name of the fancy package here, for a complete graph on 5 vertices, something like that. Okay, we've got a bunch of code. I'm going to insert that. I'm going to go up to the top and make sure that I have Tixie already there, which I do. Now I'm going to compile it and let's see what we get. And now I have my beautiful complete graph on 5 vertices. And what I really like about this is it teaches me how to do this as well. I can see when I look inside the begin picture and the end picture that what it's sort of done is it's created a for each, which is like a little for loop here, for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And every time it's drawn, I know that's what the little circles are, and it's filled in with black. So I can see, like right in here, if I wanted to, I could change that to yellow. I don't know why I'm so obsessed with yellow today, but if I did that, I bet it makes all of those nodes now be yellow instead. That's one type of graph. Let me do the other mathematical idea of a graph. Give a plot of sine of x. How about on the domain, I don't know, 0 to 4 pi with tick marks every pi over 2? How about something like that? That would be a nice plot that I would need in my first year calculus. I'm going to insert that. I actually notice here that it's added a bit of preamble stuff to it, so I'm going to delete those preamble elements to it. There we go. And let's see what happens if I compile that. And I get this lovely plot of sine on precisely the domain and with precisely the tick marks that I was hoping for. Of course, you could draw your graph somewhere else and then just include them as an image. There's a simple wizard to include an image from somewhere else. I like to draw graphs within LaTeX. It allows me, for example, to use the same identical fonts and style for all of the mathematical symbols that are included in my plot, like right within my plot. If I go and try to make it somewhere else, everything's going to look a little different. It's going to format weird, and my images are going to be constrained and not scale appropriately. So I really like being able to build stuff right here inside of Overleaf. Next up, I wanted to talk about writing, kind of like writing your English. So not so much about the formatting of the mathematics and the tables and the figures, but just the actual writing of your paragraphs. And honestly, a lot of LaTeX editors just have like nothing at all. So even a simple thing like grammar suggestions here, I can come up here on I speak English good, and what does it suggest? Well, it says 94% to 6% I speak English well. I can accept that change, and it's going to make that little change for me. There's actually a lot of fancier tools here that are going to leverage Writefull's AI to be able to help your writing. And before I even get into that, I just want to preface by saying that sort of more with my professor hat on here, that I think that academic writing in general should reflect your ideas and represent your way of trying to communicate those ideas. If you're a student, you should be really careful about what your institution's policies are on large language models. However, I also think, as so many students are experiencing, that AI can be an additive tool while you're trying to write and can make things a little bit easier. So I just copy and pasted a long amount of text from something that I once wrote for a paper, and I'll notice a few of them. Like, for example, one of the things I've always really liked, if I select this here, is if I change the style to be a little bit more concise. You can probably tell from this video, I like to ramble a little bit here. It will make suggestions about how I can take that paragraph and I can clean it up and tighten it. If you have a big block of text, you're trying to learn what this text does, there's tools like the explain tool that's going to go and take that big text and try to explain something technical to you. There's one that I quite like, summarize, so you can take a big multi-paragraph thing that maybe you don't want to read just right away, and it's going to go and summarize it down into a single paragraph. And so these tools and the other ones they have, I think, can make the process of diving into the academic literature and trying to understand a lot of stuff quickly a little bit more efficient at times. I should also mention that you have some choice for the language feedback that's provided by Writefull. You can always use OpenAI's GPTs, where the main advantage here is that this is integrated into the context of your document, and that Writefull has done some custom prompt overlays to make sure that the tone is adjusted for an appropriate academic setting. But I've actually been playing around and really enjoying Writefull's model. So this is their own proprietary model that has been trained on open access research papers. And when you're trying to, again, write with that academic tone, I'm finding it to be really effective. And finally, one of the premium features is that you can just write your own custom prompt. So it calls to OpenAI surveys with the overlay, whatever your custom prompt is. So if you have a special use case for that and would prefer that, this at least is an option. For myself, I'm somebody who's been using, oh my goodness, it's been 20 years of using LaTeX all the way back to my undergrad days, which I guess is dating me a little bit here. So I don't need the AI to help me remember what some of the basic commands are. However, I still have found that integrating AI into the workflow has been helpful for me. I think this was clearest with tables, where I love making tables somewhere else or getting the data from somewhere else and just copying the image. But even for things like using those Tixy plots and diagrams, I often find that it's just really fast and efficient to get it to generate the skeleton, and I can then go and make little tweaks here and there. If you had really complicated things, eventually you get to the limit of what the AI is able to do, but it can often get you started and minimize the amount of work that you need to do. Now, Writefull's integration into Overleaf actually is a really good free tier that you can do a ton of stuff with. If you need things like unlimited daily usage, or those custom GPTs and some of the fancier features, well, then you can upgrade to premium. Either way, I've put a link down in the description so you can click on that link just to get yourself started. Now, I'm curious if you have any questions or thoughts about how you're learning LaTeX these days. Leave it down in the comments, give the video a like for the YouTube algorithm, and we'll do some more math in the next video.